Whew, boy, it's hot in here. Oh. Hey, what's up, guys? It's it. NFL season is back. Um, Good game last night between the Bills and the Rams. Um, Josh Allen, I think, is going to be MVP this year. And Gabriel Davis is going to be legit this year. But I'm not talking about them. Team I want to talk about is, of course, our Buccaneers. Now, of course, we got week one matchup. Our season opener against the Dallas Cowboys, the same team that we beat last season. Now, unpopular opinion, I think the Cowboys are going to win because I feel that. Okay. Obviously, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding, guys. Okay, we're gonna beat the Cowboys again. The only problem is last year AB put up 5 catches for 121 yards. We don't have AB, but we got weapons. Okay, we got weapons. We got Julio Jones. We got Russell Gage. We got the returning Chris Godwin, Logan Ryan, Keanu Neal. We got those guys. Cowboys, they lost their number one receiver, Amari Cooper. They got a broken down Ezekiel Elliott still on the team. So, I mean, that there should already just offset. And of course, our quarterback is better, but we already knew that. But I want to talk about Ezekiel Elliott. So we know Ezekiel Elliott, in his first 4 years, he was the best running back in football. But the Cowboys didn't really have receivers. I mean, they had Dez Bryant at the time, but he was already beaten up, and he wasn't that guy anymore. So Ezekiel Elliott was that guy. 2019 was his last great season. He had 300 carries, 1,357 yards, 12 touchdowns, was a Pro Bowler. Good. Only 2 years later, after that great season, he is a shell. It took this man 17 games to barely get 1,000 yards. You got running backs now getting about 1,600 yards rushing, 1,300, let me say, 1,300 yards. And he barely got 1,000. By comparison, Leonard Fournette had 800 yards rushing last year, and he wasn't even a feature back. He was splitting time and carries with the Ronald Jones, with the Giovanni Bernard, etc., and he almost had 1,000 yards. So that should tell you who's the better back. I think Leonard Fournette is better than Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott is not that feature bell cow back anymore. He's just not. You can't rely on Zeke to win games anymore. He had 10 touchdowns last year. Okay, good. He did score. But he's just not that guy who can, he's not a big player, playmaker anymore. He's what you gotta give it to him on short yardage possessions. But the next person I want to talk about is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. And when I was doing the video, I was thinking, who does CeeDee Lamb remind me of? And then immediately I thought, Juju Smith-Schuster. I feel CeeDee Lamb is the Juju Smith-Schuster of the Cowboys. And what I mean by that is, when Juju was with the Steelers, and he was putting up Pro Bowl 11,000 yard receiving numbers as a second option because AB was getting double coverage. AB was getting the best corner, so Juju was able to eat. But when AB left, Juju wasn't that guy to be able to carry. I mean, everybody was hyped about Juju becoming the number one option. He's going to put up these big numbers, more opportunities, more catches, more balls, more yards, more touchdowns. But he folded under pressure. CeeDee Lamb, I feel, without Amari Cooper, is going to get all that coverage. It's going to roll over to him now. Excuse me. Sorry. And CeeDee Lamb had 1,100 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. But 1,100 yards is what gets to me. 1,100 yards is not as impressive as it was. It's not as impressive as it was, let's say, 10 years ago. Because Cooper Kupp set the standard for receiving yards with his almost 2,000 yards receiving last year. So 1,100 yards is just not that great anymore. My daughter's crying. I gotta get my wife. Quiet my daughter real quick. So, but yeah, like I said, with CeeDee Lamb, I don't think he is a number one option. I just don't think he's a number one option anymore. At all. I'm sorry. He's just not that guy. But the Cowboys have this weird thing where they just use running backs and they just use them, and then they just discard them. I'll give you an example. DeMarco Murray. Remember him? DeMarco Murray had a season, he had 1,800 yards rushing. Contract time, they didn't want to pay him. He went to Philly for a cup of coffee, then went to Tennessee, and then he was out of league 3-4 years later. But that 1,800 yards, they ran him to the ground. It took some seasons off him. It took some carries off of him for his future because they just burnt this man out so much. And it just seemed to be a thing with running backs. Kind of like I said, it's a underpaid, undervalued position now because it's the throwing league now. You know, a Le'Veon Bell, who was a running back and he was a receiver, and he was a great catcher. He could play receiver a little. At Pittsburgh, they just used him up. They kept giving him franchise tags, and they just did not want to pay Le'Veon Bell. They just kept squeezing all his juice out until he got to the Jets, and he was just a shell of himself. Deebo Samuel, who got his money finally, but he was a reverse Le'Veon Bell. He was a receiver. They had him playing running back sometime because of his versatility. And once they used him up for a couple seasons, they didn't want to pay him, but then they realized how young he was, and they could keep doing it. And he was a weapon and probably their best offensive threat. And then you got Adrian Peterson, who came out ACL injury, ran for 2,000 yards, was MVP, but they just didn't want to. They tried to lowball. The Vikings did, wanted to lowball AP. Didn't want to pay him, and he went to the Saints. And Adrian Peterson, the best running back in the 2000 era, has been bouncing around and was a journeyman, unfortunately. But that's just some simple examples I want to come up with. But I just feel that our offense is going to win this game for us. I mean, obviously we got Brady. We got a load of receivers. Cowboys are still, they got guys that come into these new positions that they haven't been there before, and I don't think they're ready for that. But, you know, I think the score is going to be 31-20. Then they're going to put up 31-20. Brady's going to have a couple touchdowns, probably an interception. I think Mike Evans is going to get a touchdown in. And I think Julio going to get a touchdown in. But those are just my prediction, guys. So thank you for watching the video. And like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later.